Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
It is Thursday morning. It is a chilly, rainy day here in northern DMZ. I don't know if it's full swamp weather in DC these days.
No, it's cold here, or cool. It's it doesn't feel like summer at all. It's been like in the 70s and kind of chilly in the mornings, a lot of rain. It has not felt like your nation's capital, which is normally super humid and hot.
Does this mean you're not doing your normal summer sojourn tour to a air-conditioned Arizona hotel? What would all DC denizens do to get away from the muggy swamp weather?
I miss the heat. You know, there's something nostalgic about it. I grew up in this area, and it's summer supposed to be hot. You want to go to the pool. It's supposed to be humid. And it doesn't, it feels like we're in Maine or something. It doesn't feel like DC. So I may have to go someplace warm to it could be the year without a summer.
Now, I saw this morning that your boy, Justin Amash, is teasing the presidential run, saying, so he's thinking about it. If he does it, it's not to be a spoiler, it's to win. But still suggesting he would do a third party bid. So are you ready to quit your job? Are you ready to get on the Amash train?
Maybe I could help him more from my perch here, Bill, than working on a campaign. But I'm ready to jump on board because I would love to have somebody to vote for. I would love to have somebody to vote for in a general election. I don't think he could win, but I don't care. That's not what this is about. It's about being able to sort of have a vote that you can cast, that doesn't destroy your integrity. And so that's what I'm excited about. And I do think, sadly, it's looking like it may be his only way to kind of keep things going. It looks like he's in trouble in his Michigan House seat. He's being primaried, and I just saw Donald Trump Jr. is threatening to campaign, or at least hinting that he's going to campaign against him in Michigan. So
nothing that he's done you would do if you were trying to win your House seat. He knows he's attracted a Republican challenger. He knows being against Trump is not good in a Republican primary. It sounds like if he runs for president, it would be third party. Though he's saying he doesn't want to be a spoiler. He doesn't want to have your attitude, which is this is just for the heck of it, just to give people the choice. He's saying, obviously you need to have a certain amount of bravado if you're going to do this, that he's running to win. But what in his background suggests he would actually win that contest? He's a very idiosyncratic politician. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who would attract a broad base of support.
No, I think you're right. But a normal person wouldn't stand up to Trump. We know that because normal Republicans are not standing up to Trump. And so by definition, I think you need a certain personality type, somebody who doesn't necessarily care about being liked, somebody who prioritizes ideological purity over pragmatism and over career advancement. And so I think that this is almost a self-selecting thing. You need to have an idiosyncratic sort of person to be crazy enough to challenge a Republican president and to basically sacrifice your young political career to do what is right. So I think that's a feature, not a bug, or at least it's almost a prerequisite for someone willing to do this. And of course he has to say he's in it to win it. I mean, that's what you say, and that should be your attitude if you run. But having said that, I'm not so quixotic, but I don't care. I'm also not convinced, and Bill, we've talked about this, that he would be a spoiler. There's an argument that he would take votes from Biden and not from Trump. So
right. I was going to ask you that. Do you think we're coming off this interview that Trump gave with Stephanopoulos, where he says outright, if a foreign government wants to peddle dirt on my opponent, I'd take it, and I wouldn't necessarily tell the FBI. Time and time again, Republicans have swallowed these kind of comments and not broken ranks with Trump. Does that kind of behavior make it more possible that Amash would take votes from the Trump column and not only take votes from the anti-Trump column?
I mean, sadly, I don't think this the new comments move the needle much. In a way, they are incredibly radical and they should be jarring. You know, I have a column at the Daily Beast this past week that basically argues about the death of outrage. I mean, we're inundated by chaos and by outrageous statements, and so it's hard for me to believe that this is the time that that Republicans are going to distance themselves from Trump. So I don't think it makes a big difference, actually, and I think that basically what happens is people like me, who we've already kind of decided where we are on Trump, it keeps us from supporting Biden. Because I'm not going to vote for Trump. I've decided that. I think if you're an Amash voter, you've already decided where you are with Trump. And so then the question is, do you go and vote for Biden? Because even though he's to the left of where I am, at least he's within the framework of liberal democracy, whereas Trump is kind of outside that system, outside those norms and institutions. So I think that you could certainly make an argument that Amash doesn't hurt Trump and maybe hurts Biden more. So,
I mean, you were someone who didn't vote for Trump last time but stayed home. So you didn't tip all the way over into being a Democrat for that election. I mean, what were the odds that you were ever going to vote for Biden? I mean, I'm assuming people, Sanders and Warren are off limits for you. Probably Harris, O'Rourke would be off limits to you. Maybe you consider Buttigieg?
Not really. I mean, so here's the thing. And I've been asked this question a lot. I was asked this question on Real Time with Bill Maher, and my plan is I can't really bring myself to vote for Trump or Biden. And this is because both have kind of disqualified themselves for different reasons. Trump obviously having to do with character and temperament. Biden, I mean, we just saw most recently with the sorry, I'm sleep deprived.
The Hyde Amendment.
The Hyde Amendment. One more example. Taxpayer funding of abortion kind of thing. So, I mean, I think the only thing that would lead me to Biden would be if I became convinced that Trump wasn't just a bad actor, but that he was literally entering into Hitler territory. And then the ends do justify the means. And I've really resisted this being pushed into this binary choice because I don't want to be complicit with the policies and the rhetoric of either of these sides. I mean, if Joe Biden's going to have to run to the left to probably stave off a primary challenge and win the nomination. And if he becomes president, his party is really radicalized. And he's going to be nominating judges to lifetime appointments. He's going to have thousands of bureaucrats staffing agencies who are going to be explicitly pushing policies that I am 100% opposed to. And so I just can't imagine that I would vote either way.
This is why I think what I want to crystallize that Amash, in your case, isn't taking a potential vote away from the Democrats because you were 99.9% not going to be there anyway. You're really choosing between staying home again or voting for Amash.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that your one example is the end of the debate, but the question still remains: does Amash in the race take away potential votes for the Democrat who would vote for Democrats strictly on the basis of I don't like Trump and I'll vote for whoever the main alternative is? If you give that person choices, does a more moderate anti-Trump person who says I like Amash better than the Democrat, vote for Amash, and therefore you're splitting the anti-Trump majority. But I think your logic is, partially makes sense to me. I mean, I think you're right that any Democrat, Biden or otherwise, are going to appoint judges who are going to uphold Roe v. Wade. I don't think they're all going to make it a overt litmus test, but we all know how to vet judges these days. They're not going to mistakenly put an anti-Roe person on the court.
You guys are 100% right on your judges. Right. There's no judge that gets on the bench and becomes conservative.
Well, I don't think that's totally fair. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for example, is not hard left on criminal justice questions, and Orrin Hatch, who recommended her to Bill Clinton, knew that. There are a number of cases that don't get into the zeitgeist, that don't get into our kitchen table conversation, where the Democratically appointed justices do side with the Republican justices on sort of center-right decisions. But on the big ones, sure, the Democrats don't.
They voted. I mean, the Democrats on the big hot-button issues vote unanimously in lockstep.
Yeah,
it's the Republicans where you'll have like Roberts vote for upholding Obamacare or something like that. It doesn't happen on the left.
You're not gonna be happy with any Democratic president's judges. You're not going to be happy with who staffs the bureaucracy. You're not going to be happy with the rules and regulations that comes down. That's true. I don't think you should take the Hyde example as evidence that a Biden who was otherwise running as more moderate is somehow going to be captive to the far left. I feel like I see this a lot on the right, where you take the one data point. Oh, this means that Biden is completely caved in. It's going to be just like it's Bernie or Warren, and all is lost. This whole moderate bipartisan is a sham. Look, Al Gore did the same thing. Al Gore was pro Hyde in the 80s, and he flipped in the 90s, and Gore's campaign manager said, "Oh, Gore's still pro Hyde." And Bill Bradley was given a guff about it, and the campaign manager had to eat his words, say, "Oh no, I got that wrong. Gore's anti-Hyde now." And then they get into, when Clinton won, when Obama won, Obama was anti-Hyde, and they get in there, and look what happens. Hyde's still there. Hyde is still a popular position. There's a strong majority of the country that doesn't want taxpayer funding of abortions. And when push comes to shove, Democrats don't go to the mat on it. There's going to be a vote in a few days, because this is not a permanent law. This is a rider on annual labor HHS appropriations. And time again, Democrats say, we're not going to win this fight. There's other stuff in this appropriations bill that I want. I'm going to suck it up and vote for the whole bill.
Yeah.
So why would that change in a Biden presidency? Now, there's a writer at the National Review, John McCormick. I wrote a piece about this for Real Clear Politics this past Monday. National Review's John McCormick was challenging me on that, saying that sort of the time is nigh for Democrats to go to the mat on Hyde, because if they have a slight majority in the Senate, they would end the filibuster, and they would ram this through on a straight majority vote. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. One, I'm not convinced you're going to end the filibuster. If you have a narrow Senate majority, you might get a handful of Democrats who are saying, look, I know what life is like in the minority, and I don't want to completely change the nature of the institution right off the bat without seeing what Republicans do in response. And even if they did that, Hyde is still a popular position. So are there purple state senators that are going to want to go down that path? That's a lot of ifs. And certainly in the case of a guy like Biden, yeah, he's flipped on this. Is he going to lean into it as president? Is he going to force the issue as president? I think there's a lot of uncertainty there. And so if I'm a pro-life conservative, and this is even a bigger question, really, is Hyde the end-all, be-all? Is Hyde this sort of amazing thing that makes you feel good about the state of abortion politics today? Shouldn't the attitude be, what am I going to do to reduce the number of abortions? And a guy like Biden, who you know Biden has a long history of being squeamish about abortion, you could work with a guy like that and say, look, what other policies can we do to reduce unwanted pregnancies? Biden's going to get on board with a bipartisan initiative like that. So I feel like you could see the forest for the trees and say, there's other non-abortion issues. There's the shredding of our democracy and the devolution of our world.
No, but that's really what it comes down to, because I'm a conservative, and so it's not just Hyde. Basically, I disagree with Biden on almost everything. And so the idea that just because I don't like Trump, that people like me would then, we don't like Trump, but so let's go for the guy that we disagree with on every other issue. I mean, you go down the list. I am not a liberal Democrat, nor am I a moderate Democrat. I mean, and I'm speaking for, like, I don't get the people who say, oh, I guess I was wrong about war and the environment and and gun control, and just because Trump is a bad person doesn't mean I have changed my mind about every other issue.
Well, but the question is, do you have to treat that vote as I'm capitulating on every single one of these issues, or am I saying the destabilization that Trump's doing to the world is the most pressing issue? I will swallow a few years of policies I don't like to stop that larger problem. And I think, and we should start with this a little bit more in terms of what's happening with Bernie and Warren and Biden. In all likelihood, we're not going to have a narrowly divided Senate one way or the other. There's not a lot of opportunity for either party to get a real supermajority based on the types of seats that are up in 2020. You're likely going to have, unless you think Democrats are going to end the filibuster, which I think Biden probably doesn't even want to do. Warren is pushing that argument hard. She would lean on Democrats to do that. I don't know if she'd win, but she'd lean on it. Biden probably wouldn't lean on Democrats to do that. I think you have a higher likelihood of a lot of gridlock in the Senate, not a lot of movement left or right on domestic policy, and the lion's share of what the president's going to do, a Democratic president, is foreign policy. So with Biden on foreign policy, I think you'd be much more comfortable with than Trump on foreign policy.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to sort of like, what is your criteria for voting for somebody? And I certainly understand like your logic and people who basically want to say, because, I mean, essentially what you just said, like, because Trump is such a norm-breaking, bad person, that therefore you should go vote for Biden as the lesser of two evils. It's a binary choice. And then, look, I think that's a perfectly understandable rationale for, or criteria for how you vote. It's not how I think of my vote. For me, I'm not thinking strategically like that. I'm thinking somebody needs to earn my vote. Like, if Joe Biden wants my vote, he can earn it. And he's not going to do that. You and I both know it's not going to happen. He's not going to do it. So I am like, I don't feel compelled to have to pick one of these two people or one of these two parties. I feel like my standards are very high, and I will disqualify people for various reasons. And that is just sort of the paradigm, or the way that I look at my vote. And I know a lot of people disagree on how to do that, but that's kind of the way that I view it.
Let's shift and talk about the state of the Democratic race, because the movement that we've seen, and it's not necessarily an enormous movement, it depends on what poll you're looking at, but there seems to be evidence that Warren is making a move. Now you look at the Morning Consult tracking poll, she hasn't made a move in that poll, but she did make a move in the Quinnipiac poll. She made a move in the Economist YouGov poll, I'm sorry. And she placed second in a Nevada poll, which we haven't seen polled very much. And, it's a caucus. I think caucuses are tough to poll because it's hard to know who's going to show. And, the Iowa poll that we've seen is going to be even harder to poll. And the most recent poll, which showed both Warren and Buttigieg moving up, but not quite overtaking Sanders, but getting into a decent double-digit spot, kind of a cluster around the second place spot behind Biden, who was a softer it's more in the 20s and the 30s. Iowa's changed their rules. So 10% of the people participating are going to be in a virtual caucus who don't have to go to a gymnasium. I think we talked about this in a past show. So the pollsters was saying we had to change our methodology to account for that. This is the first time we're doing that, and we don't know how this is going to work. So we're flying a little bit blind, but we have some polling to show that Warren's making a move, and Bernie in the Real Clear polling average is starting to not a plummet, but a bit downward. Some of the people in the Sanders camp are spinning wildly on Twitter, particularly David Sirota and Brianna Joy Gray. I had she didn't engage me, but she put out a tweet saying Bernie is doing the best with non-white voters, and that is just empirically not true. He's doing better than people give him credit for. But Biden is still in the lead with both African Americans and Hispanics in every poll that we've seen where that's broken down. And Sirota put out a tweet saying, look at Bernie's rise in the Quinnipiac poll. He's moved 8 points since April. And then Nate Silver shot back at him saying, you don't just look at one poll, you look at the average of the polls, and the average he's ticked downward in that time. Not by a lot, but it's really not a Bernie surge. If anyone's moving up here, it's Warren. So I think it sort of raises the question, is Warren really on the beginning of a surge where it becomes a two-person race? It's Warren championing the left and Biden championing the middle, and Bernie is marginalized. Or are we just seeing the crystallization of the balkanization of the party, where you can't completely eliminate Sanders because he's got that diehard socialist base? Warren's not going to eat into what Biden has because he's occupying a different strategic and ideological space. And Buttigieg is not being shoved to the side. He has his own niche of, Warren's base is more left college-educated voters, and Buttigieg has his own niche of more moderate college-educated voters. And he's raised enough money, and he's got a real staff. But I think Sanders, Warren, and Buttigieg seem to be, if not totally flush, not broke. They can function, they can compete, they can travel, they can get on TV. And so they're not going to fade completely at this juncture. So does that lead to a 4-way or maybe 5-way pileup because Harris is still in the mix that doesn't allow Warren to be the alternative and allows Biden to remain in front, maybe not in a hugely dominant way, but still, if you're in the 30s in that kind of environment, you're going to do okay.
So the way I look at it, Bill, is I think Biden would be in trouble if there was anybody out there who had a rock star appeal. I think Buttigieg is the closest we come to that, but he's not. I think it's just too little, too late kind of thing. He's just not quite there. So I think Biden is obviously up pretty big, but it seems like it's a little soft. And I do think if there was someone else who had the potential to creep up on him, he would be in danger. I just don't see it happening. And I'm still a little surprised. There's like 22 people in this field, but we never got the Oprah Winfrey. Doesn't it seem like there would have been an opening for someone, or maybe even just like I'm trying to think of like someone not at an Oprah level, but who's the guy who owns like the Dallas Mavericks or
Mark
whatever.
Cuban.
Like a Mark Cuban. We never got that person in the race.
Well, Cuban, I mean, Oprah is her own thing,
Yeah.
and she obviously, the theoretical appeal of Oprah is that she would transcend a lot of categories and potentially be a unifying figure. Cuban, I don't think, would be that person. He's more of a Bloomberg situation where a lot of folks would be like, we do not need some amateur billionaire swooping in and trying to buy this party. Oprah is also an amateur billionaire, but she's of a different class. Warren is a rock star in a certain camp. Bernie is a rock star in a certain camp. Buttigieg is a rising rock star in a certain camp. But I think they all are appealing to niches. And Warren, Bernie is never going to be a unifying figure in the party. I think even in his own admission, if you read between the lines of his comments, he's not even trying to be that. He's trying to be someone who is launching a takeover of the party. And he said on a couple of occasions, I don't think you need to get to 50% to win these early contests. He's not trying to be that guy. His problem is he's not even getting into the 30s right now. He's getting stuck in the teens. Warren, in theory, has always been someone who could unify the party, who can be left but not as left as Bernie, and have enough populist fire to suggest she could win in swing areas. And as well as she is doing, and you can make an argument that she is running the best campaign of the race, that she hurt herself. She made the biggest mistake of the race with the Pocahontas, the DNA test, and came from off the mat to be in a solid, second tier, if you want to, or define top tier broadly, top tier, and doing it in a very methodical, one foot in front of the other kind of way. But even that, to me, I don't see evidence that she, getting into the teens isn't convincing the broad middle of the Democratic Party, not the broad middle of the country, but the Democratic Party, saying, I think you are an electable choice. I think you can go toe-to-toe with Trump. I think you deserve to be on a debate stage with him. I don't think she's broken that barrier yet. She's still weighed down by the DNA test debacle, and a concern that the ideas she's putting out there are pushing the envelope too much to feel comfortable with her in a general election setting. That's my sense of it. Now, maybe she will get enough good press that people will see her plans in a different light and say, hey, she's doing this well, maybe she can go toe-to-toe with Trump, and they will deprioritize the Pocahontas situation. But I do think, right now Biden's the guy in Trump's head, and Trump's talking about him the most. If Warren gets into that level and Trump is talking about her more, then we'll see how people feel about the prospect of them going toe-to-toe.
Well, the debates are a moment where somebody could make a move, and
sure.
Where are we? It seems like everyone's going to make the debates, basically.
It seemed like, I believe we're taping Thursday morning. If they haven't done it since we've been talking, I believe later today we'll get the official of invites from the party. But those who have been watching it closely have said that Bullock, Moulton, that guy Wayne Messam, I forget if Swalwell was in the bubble or not.
I think he made it, according to
maybe Swalwell made it. Bullock was the guy
which I think is indicative of a problem.
Well, I think the bigger problem...
There's no standards to keep... maybe everyone's in this, 20... Instead of 22, it'll be 20 or something.
Right, 20 was always going to be the cap. 10 one night, 10 the second night. Randomly mixed how they are organized, so it's no kids' table. In my mind... The abomination here is that people like Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang are getting in, and a red state governor is not even getting a crack at this. And it's partly Bullock's own fault because he got in late. But certainly plenty of people have gotten into this late, which is the spring, and been allowed to get into a debate and may make their case, who have far more credentials than the people who are getting in, just because they had cult followings that could get enough, donors. That if you're going to give an advantage to cult followings over people with real credentials, I think that's a bad setup.
Well, as you know, Bill, I kind of like Andrew Yang.
I know you do,
and I hope that he has a chance to have a moment. I don't know if you get that chance with 10 other people or 9 other people on the debate stage, if Andrew Yang is even going to have the opportunity.
Well, it makes it harder. Really, to get your moment is a lot more difficult when you're on a very crowded stage.
Dude, I've been on TV panels with 9 people on one of these panel discussions, and you think you have an hour. You're on for maybe a whole hour. there's not a lot of time.
No, you might get literally 2 or 3 statements for that whole thing, and that'd be it.
They won't really. I'm sure they won't have commercials, or if they do, it'll just be one commercial in the middle or something. So it might not be as bad. But yeah, it's not as much time as you think when it's divided up by 10 people.
And so if you're now, I mean, right now we seem to have about 5, maybe 6 people you consider like sort of real competitors: Bernie, Biden, Warren, Harris, Buttigieg, and you can be a little charitable and throw Beto in there, because he's been over 1% in polling. And then you get down to like the 2 to 1%ers, Klobuchar, Booker, Gillibrand, de Blasio, Swalwell, Hickenlooper. I'm not going to really name them off the top of my head. Those folks, Carly Fiorina came out of nowhere and had like one good debate before it and got into the top tier. Michelle Bachmann was considered a bit of a joke. Then I thought I had a fairly mediocre debate before it, so people got very excited about her briefly, and she got a lot of attention. Herman Cain had a moment like that in the debates. So you can get your moment that gets cycled into the news, and all of a sudden you're not at 1%, you're at 5%, and you're getting more media attention. So I could certainly see, a good performer. Like Cory Booker's a good performer. I could see Booker having a good moment in a debate. I could see, maybe Gillibrand could have a good moment in a debate. Klobuchar's more of a low-key person, but she had a moment vis-a-vis Kavanaugh that broke her out. Maybe she can find a way to manufacture that. Those odds get even harder if you got a total fringe candidate who is practiced at performing. I mean, Williamson is a performer. I mean, she's not got as much attention as Yang, but she has done a lot of performing in her life as a new age author and speaker. So if she gets some great moment, that cuts down the oxygen for your senator or your governor to have that kind of a moment. So they may continue to gum up the works and make it harder for there to be mobility in the race for those who've been languishing at 1%. And for them, the debates are it. If they can't make a moment in the June debate or the July debate, the September debate, the thresholds get higher, the polling threshold is higher, and the donor threshold is higher. You may see a real abrupt narrowing of this debate because those folks can't get oxygen in the first 2.
So they have a lot of incentive to, say controversial things, and so almost a perverse incentive probably to pander and to maybe even to go after other people.
I think there's a huge incentive to manufacture conflict. There's a huge incentive to come up with like the great line, or to come up with some sort of new idea that's going to turn heads. And that's different than other debate schedules. Usually the early debates, they're kind of, feeling each other out. They don't make too many sudden moves. There's a risk in causing conflict. There's a risk that you're going to be seen as a nasty person. And a lot of Democrats don't want to see Democrats beating on each other. So the conflict tends to intensify closer to Iowa and New Hampshire when the stakes get a lot higher and people start to get twitchy. There's a huge incentive to make your move now because you might get cut off before you even get a shot. So yeah, I assume the target's on Biden's back in a big way. But again, we don't know. Sanders and Warren haven't really hesitated to take shots. But even Buttigieg has made some glancing blows. Not by name, but you can read between the lines pretty easily. But we don't know who's going to get the shot at him directly because he's only going to be there for one of the 2 nights. I'm also curious, is someone going to take a shot at Bernie or Warren? Because they're starting to get it. If you want to be the Biden alternative, they're in your way. So is there going to be openings there for people to say, this person's not electable, this person's too far out there? I don't know. If I'm Tulsi, quite frankly, I would go after Bernie or Warren on foreign policy and try to position myself to the left of them. I don't know if she's going to do that, but that's what I would do.
Well, so this is this month, right? The first debate is coming up in a couple of weeks now.
June 26th, 27th.
All right, well done.
So we're 2 weeks away. We're 3 weeks away.
Maybe we should have a special DMZ that's simulcast during the debate.
Oh God, no one wants that.
Real time.
No one wants that at all. I mean, the tweeting that goes on during that is already so insufferable. I don't think you need us yabbering about it.
We could do like a thing where you just see the silhouette of the back of our heads watching the debate, passing the popcorn back and forth.
If you want to, travel up here to Massachusetts and hang out on my couch, we can do that.
You know me, I would, at the drop of a hat, I come up there to Massachusetts. So.
It might feel a little muggier down there. You want to cool off in the Northeast? I'm here.
Well, it's not maple syrup season yet.
It's just like not maple season. It is berry season. The berries are going to be pretty ripe. I'm already seeing the strawberries come up. I don't know if the early raspberries happen yet. Things got a little delayed because of the rain. The asparagus was late this year because of the rain. But I think the asparagus ice cream is being scooped over at Cook's in Hadley. So lots of reasons to come up here.
It's great, man.
I don't know, is there anything else that's on your mind this week, Matt?
Well, we could go. I mean, we could always talk, but I think we've probably scratched the DMZ itch for the week.
All right. What do you got to plug?
I talked to Adam Gopnik of the New Yorker about his book on liberalism, why liberalism has become a punching bag, both by the illiberal left and by the populist right. So check that out, Matt Lewis in the News, on iTunes and Stitcher and wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm not sure when it's going to go live. I had a great interview with Ryan Grimm, who was at The Intercept, and he just put out a book called We've Got People, which is chronicling the rise of the new left. He says he traced it from the Jesse Jackson campaigns to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And he was hoping I would write a mean review of his book like I did for the Chapo Trap House boys. But I couldn't do that. It's a much better book. So we had a good chat. So that should be up at New Books in Politics at the New Books Network pretty soon. And
he shouldn't have written such a good book.
He did actual work on his book, unlike Chapo. That was his downfall. And I'm in the midst of a very, very involved piece on Bernie's foreign policy, which hopefully will be up at Politico soon, but we're still in the editing process, so keep an eye out for that.
All right, my man. Thank you, Bill Scher, and follow us on Twitter, everybody, at DMZ Show, and we'll be back here next week in the DMZ.
All right, until next week.